Ukraine has made significant moves in bolstering its defense capabilities and international cooperation, according to recent reports and statements. One of the most notable developments is the authorization for the country's large military to operate abroad under specific conditions. As of 2025, Ukraine possesses the largest army in Europe, with approximately 980,000 active personnel, significantly exceeding the troop numbers of other major European nations like France, which has around 200,000 soldiers. The Ukrainian parliament has overwhelmingly supported a measure that grants its substantial armed forces the ability to train and operate in other countries. President Volodymyr Zelensky signed this new law, officially titled "On Amendments to Certain Laws of Ukraine Regarding the Deployment of Armed Forces Units to Other Countries During Martial Law," on March 17, 2025, following its passage by the parliament on January 15. The explanatory note accompanying the legislation highlights that the ongoing war with Russia has underscored the critical need to refine the mechanisms for deploying Ukrainian troops, both individually and in units, to partner nations. This legal framework is designed to improve Ukraine's capacity to receive and effectively utilize complex military equipment that is essential for defending its sovereignty and territorial integrity. The bill received broad support in the Ukrainian legislature, with 317 lawmakers voting in favor. Under this newly enacted law, Ukrainian military units can be stationed outside the country during martial law to provide support for Ukraine's security, defense, and resistance against aggression, aligning with Article 51 of the United Nations Charter. Crucially, any decisions regarding such deployments will be made by President Zelensky, but these decisions will be simultaneously submitted to the Ukrainian parliament for their approval. Irina Friz, a Ukrainian deputy, has clarified that this law applies to all branches of the Ukrainian military, with particular relevance for the Navy. She emphasized that it establishes a clear legal foundation for deploying Ukrainian units abroad during a time of martial law, addressing an issue that was previously not formally resolved. Friz stated that this legislation ensures that all Ukrainian troops deployed internationally will operate on fully legitimate grounds. She also noted that the law excludes the aggressor state, and the duration of any foreign deployments will be determined by regulations set forth by the Ministry of Defense. In parallel to these developments, Ukraine's Foreign Minister, Andrii Sybiha, announced that the idea of deploying a peacekeeping mission to Ukraine to monitor a potential ceasefire has moved into the implementation phase. According to Sybiha's interview, several countries have already expressed their readiness to contribute military contingents to such a mission. European leaders had previously proposed the idea of placing peacekeeping forces behind a future demarcation line in Ukraine. Notably, French President Emmanuel Macron put forward this proposal in February. Several nations, including Italy, Great Britain, Latvia, Germany, Canada, and Australia, have indicated their willingness to send peacekeeping units to Ukraine. Romania has offered to serve as a transit point for these forces, while Poland has stated it does not plan to commit its own troops. Sybiha has stated that Ukraine has a clear understanding of the countries willing to deploy their troops as important operational elements of the future security guarantees system, and discussions regarding the specifics are already underway. These discussions will cover critical details such as the deployment locations, the total number of peacekeepers involved, and the mandate of the mission. Sybiha also highlighted the coalition summit led by UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer, which included an online meeting of world leaders to discuss support for Ukraine, attended by President Zelensky, and the ongoing involvement of national security advisors in these discussions. He emphasized that these efforts are no longer abstract ideas, but are actively in the stage of implementation. Sybiha underscored the critical importance of American support for the peacekeeping mission, stating that U.S. involvement and leadership are essential. Addressing Russia's opposition to the deployment of a peacekeeping contingent, he affirmed that Ukraine will pursue all actions that align with its national interests and ensure long-term security. Sybiha stressed that Ukraine's goals extend beyond merely the absence of combat operations, aiming for a sustainable, long-term, and just peace that prevents future Russian aggression. He concluded by emphasizing the strong coalition of support that Ukraine has, indicating that the country is not alone in its efforts. President Zelensky also addressed the nation, announcing personnel changes within the armed forces of Ukraine. He stated that, in collaboration with Commander-in-Chief Oleksandr Syrsky and Defense Minister Rustem Umerov, a decision was made to appoint Andrii Sybiha as the new chief of the General Staff. Zelensky described Sybiha as a battle-hardened officer whose primary tasks will be to maximize the integration of the combat experience of Ukrainian brigades into operational planning for both defensive and offensive operations and to accelerate the development of the core system. He emphasized that all the lessons learned by Ukrainian brigades during the war must be fully applied at the strategic planning level. General Barhalevich, the previous chief of the General Staff, has been reassigned to the main inspectorate of the Ministry of Defense. In his address, President Zelensky also provided an update on the battlefield situation, noting that fighting and defensive operations continue along almost the entire front line, including key areas from the Kharkiv region and the Kupiansk sector to the southern directions. He mentioned the talks in Jeddah and the American proposal for a ceasefire, stating that Russia has used this time to continue the war, which he asserted only Russia desires. Zelensky affirmed Ukraine's commitment to intensifying diplomatic efforts to make them effective, but emphasized that the current priority remains defending the country's independence, state, and people, underscoring the crucial role of the support for the army and all defense and security forces. He expressed gratitude to all those who are contributing to Ukraine's defense and resilience, particularly recognizing the warriors of several brigades for their bravery and effectiveness in combat in various sectors. President Zelensky also reported on a conversation with Canada's Prime Minister, Mark Carney, during which he thanked Canada for its ongoing support for Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity and for its participation in joint efforts to protect the Ukrainian people, bring peace closer, and guarantee lasting security. They discussed sanctions against Russia, specifically targeting its tanker fleet, banks, and revenue-generating schemes, as well as the outcomes of the G7 foreign ministers' meeting. Zelensky expressed gratitude to all G7 partners for their support. He noted the consistent signals of support Ukraine receives, including new defense packages and proposals for joint diplomatic efforts. Defense Minister Umerov provided an update on the fulfillment of air defense tasks, including the supply of missiles for IRIS-T, NASAMS, and SAMP/T systems, and reported positive results in securing artillery contracts for additional shells. Preparations are also underway for the next Ramstein meeting in Brussels. Furthermore, Zelensky stated that work is actively progressing on establishing a concrete security guarantees system for Ukraine, with a recent meeting of military representatives taking place in France and another being planned in the UK, marking the initial steps toward these guarantees.